In this video, you will learn how to use if conditional statements. They are the holy grail of programming. So whenever you say, if my burger is ready, then I'm gonna eat it. Or if now is a weekend, then I'm gonna have some fun. That's you using what's called in programming an if conditional statement. So it's like, if this, do that. And in real life, you think this way all the time. I bet you can remember a couple of ifs from today. Now let's create one in PHP. First, I'm going to define a variable for the amount of money I have. Let's assign it 50 bucks. Then I'm going to define another variable for the burger price, say 10 bucks. So in PHP, you always start with if keyword, then goes parentheses. Inside the parentheses, you place the conditions that determine the next actions. In this case, the conditions are money I have greater than burger price. Then you place curly braces. PHP will execute all the statements inside curly braces if the conditions are true. In our case, I will echo a string, which is I will buy and eat a burger. When I run this script, you can see that message. Okay, now let's discuss how PHP executes our if statement. It happens in two steps. First, PHP will execute all the conditions inside the parentheses. The goal is to find out whether the conditions are true or false. In our case, there is only one condition, whether I have more money than the burger's price. But we can put multiple conditions inside parentheses. In this condition, we compare two variables. 50 is greater than 10, so this condition is true. Now PHP goes to the second step, where it makes a decision. If the conditions are true, PHP runs the commands inside the curly braces. If the conditions are false, PHP skips the commands. So when I reduce my money to 5 bucks, because 5 is not greater than 10, PHP should skip the echo command. To test that, I'm going to add one more echo statement after the if and rerun our script. Okay, no burger message, which means that PHP skipped the echo command. And the only message we see is the one from the second echo. That's because an if statement affects only the commands in the curly braces right next to it. An if statement won't affect the code that's outside. Also, you can have as many statements inside the curly braces as you want. Let's add a couple more to test that. Echo, I will drink my soda. Echo, I will enjoy my fries. I'm gonna put back money I have to 50. Run the script. All 4 messages are here. Nice. You know what? Let's add a BR tag to our messages to have them on separate lines. Save, refresh, nice. Oh, and by the way, you can put any amount of spaces and new lines in these places. So we can go crazy with formatting and do something like this. And it'll still work. Or like this. PHP allows us to do that, but it doesn't make sense to make our code that ugly. So I'm gonna revert the changes, because this is the most pretty and commonly used way to format ifs. Also, sometimes you might see the opening curly brace on the next line like this. It doesn't really matter which option you choose, and it looks good in both cases. Also, notice how by using variables with proper names, we make this code easy to understand. Comparing, for example, to this code, we just draw values without any variables. This code is so much harder to understand because you need somebody to tell you what 50 and 10 means. And it's easy to get confused with those numbers when the program grows. Now let's talk about true and false. They both are boolean values. Boolean is a data type in PHP that consists only of those two values, true and false. You will use boolean for all sorts of logical operations. For example, this is a greater than comparison operator. It compares two values, and if the left one is greater than the right one, it produces true, otherwise it produces false. Okay, often in life you have a backup plan. For example, if I don't have money to buy a burger, I will go hunting and cook a free meal. To have this behavior in PHP, we have to use the else statement. I'm gonna write else, then I will put a pair of curly braces, echo go hunting, echo cook a meal, echo eat that meal. It works the following way. PHP checks the if condition first. When the condition is true, PHP executes the if group of statements inside these curly braces and ignores the else group of statements. When the condition is false, PHP ignores the if group of statements and executes the else group of statements. In our case, the condition is true, so PHP should execute the if statements. Yep. But if I reduce my money to $5, then this is false and PHP should execute the else statements. Yep, awesome. So it's always a competition between if and else. Only one wins and gets to be executed. Now, what if we want to handle more than two cases? Let's say I've got the following strategy. If I have more than $10, I'll buy a burger. If I have more than $5, I'll buy a sandwich. If I have more than $1, I'll buy a hot dog. In other cases, I'll go hunting. These two cases are already covered. I need to add the remaining two. To handle this, I'm going to use the elseif statement. I'll put a closing curly brace, then elseif, parentheses, then the opening curly brace. Between these parentheses, I'm going to put a condition for a sandwich, the same way as we did for a burger. It's going to be money I have greater than sandwich price, and I'll also create the sandwich price variable and assign 5 to it. Inside elseif, I'm going to echo buy and eat sandwich. Let's change the money I have to 6, rerun the script. Now we've got the sandwich message displayed. So this is how it works. PHP checks the first if condition. When it's true, then it executes the first group of statements right after it. And PHP ignores the remaining conditional statements and simply proceeds to the statements located right after this conditions group, which is this echo statement. In our case, the first condition is false. When this happens, PHP skips the if group of statements and checks the next elseif condition, which is true. So PHP runs the group of statements right next to it and ignores the remaining ones. Now I want to handle another case with hot dogs. For that, I'm gonna add just another elseif condition, which is closing curly brace, elseif, parentheses, then compare money I have with the hot dog price variable and opening curly brace. Let's create the hot dog price variable, which will be $1, and add echo buy and eat a hot dog. At this point, if I run this script, you'll still see the sandwich message. That's because the sandwich condition is still true and PHP ignores the remaining ones. So to make our hot dog message happen, I'm gonna need to ensure that this if and this elseif condition is false and our hot dog condition is true. For that, I'm gonna change the money I have variable to, say, 3. Rerun the script. Great. So you can see a pattern here. PHP runs these conditional statements one by one until it meets the first one, which conditions are true, and executes its group of statements. You can have as many else if statements as you want. The logic is still the same. If all the conditional statements were false, then PHP executes the else group of statements. To test that, I'm going to reduce the money I have to 0 and rerun the script. Here is our hunting message. One important note here, you need to maintain the following sequence of conditions. The first statement is always if. Then you can add as many else if statements as you want. Then the else statement is always at the end. You cannot have it like this. If, then else if. And you cannot have it like this either. Else, then if, then elseif. Always stick to the if, elseif, 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 then else at the end. The cool thing about PHP and conditional statements is that you can easily use them with HTML. Let me show you how to do this. I'm gonna add a blank HTML5 page structure. Let's make our messages part of the HTML and control which ones we display using the if statements. With PHP, it's just a matter of using PHP tags. The conditional statements are PHP code, so we need them to be inside PHP tags. And the messages will be just plain HTML, so we can leave them outside of PHP tags. For that, I will add a closing PHP tag here and opening PHP tag here. This is just like one big echo statement between the curly braces. If the condition is true, PHP will just send this content as is to the browser, as it would do with the echo command. If this condition is false, PHP ignores this content and won't send it to the browser. To test that, I'm gonna change my money back to 50, run the script. Here are our burger messages along with the echo commands. This is what the source code of the page looks like. We don't need PHP commands here, so I'm gonna remove them. Run the script. Nice. Now let's add PHP tags to the remaining statements and also clean the messages. If I refresh the page, it still works. And if I change the money I have to 6, 2, and 0, you can see corresponding messages. See how we still have the same curly braces after each conditional statement, and we have our content between those curly braces. It means that the logic behind the if conditional statement here is still the same. So in our case, the code inside the curly braces tells PHP, I'm outside of PHP tags, just send me to the browser. Having it this way is equal to using the echo command here. So basically, these two scripts do the same thing. The reason why we write the code this way is because it's much easier to read, especially if we need to display many lines of HTML. Also, code editors highlight HTML this way, and they add many other useful tools. So here, PHP goes through the conditions and decides which group of statements to execute, the same exact way as before. And this is just a more convenient way to show HTML. You just need to be careful and don't lose any of the opening and closing curly braces. If at this point you feel overwhelmed, don't worry. You just need to see more examples. Experiment with the code and eventually it will all come together. Now for practice, try to add more conditions for different other food, like pizza, cake, and so on. Just put your favorite food there. Try to use conditional statements to display HTML too. In the next video, you will learn a lot of new operators and how to group several expressions in one conditional statement. PHP has more than 60 different operators, and you will start learning the most useful ones. So see you in the next video.